Good afternoon and welcome to the DEKEL AGRI-VISION PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged, can be submitted any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just click Q&A, scroll to the bottom, type your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Lincoln Moore, Executive Director. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. It's Lincoln Moore, Executive Director here of DEKEL AGRI-VISION, and I'm joined by Shay Cole, the Deputy CEO. We are going to take you through our interim results and our just recently announced yesterday our Q3 production results for both the palm oil and the cashew business. We'll do this in the form of a short presentation, and then we received a number of questions before the call, so we'll aim to answer as many of those as possible and other questions as they come through while we're performing the presentation. So without any further ado, we'll get underway. First of all, just to start at a high level, I mean, what are we doing at DEKEL AGRI-VISION? We are trying to develop a diversified logistics and processing agri-business in collaboration with small farmers, and the aim is to do that over a number of commodities in Côte d'Ivoire, which is, I think, by far the most advanced agricultural country in West Africa. Of course, for those who follow us well, they will know that we have two production assets in play at the moment, and we also have other additional projects that we intend to develop, which are in feasibility. But really, the two at the moment is, of course, the palm oil operation, which is actually having a terrific year, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail in the presentation. And then for the first time this year, we entered commercial production of the cashew, probably well overdue, but first commercial production of the cashew business, which is making headway, and we'll talk about through some of the challenges that we've seen in that business over the last 12 months and how we see that business ramping up as we move forward. Just first of all, to summarise the half-year results, first of all, the production results in the palm oil business were really strong from a production standpoint. CPO production was about 49% higher than last year. Admittedly, last year was a relatively low harvest season, but a really good return to solid production results. And coupled together with pricing, which continues to be very strong at €934 for the half year, we've had a good first half in terms of the palm oil business. Shay, if you could just explain, this is obviously the first time we've presented numbers this year in terms of the cashew production, the first commercialisation of the business. Can you just give a brief summary of the numbers?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So thank you, Link. So as Link mentioned, this is the first half of commercial production. In terms of the daily production, it is not yet at our level of expectation, and we're working on it. In terms of the other key performance KPIs, so it is in line with our expectations, such as the cashew extraction rate and the prices level. We will see at the Q3 production that it was improved a bit.
Yeah, we'll talk through some of the challenges in cashews on that slide later on.
Yeah.
Moving on to the actual interim results, they were quite good results, obviously, but a little bit lower than last year, Shay. I mean, I think the first obvious question is given production was higher, why weren't the results as good as last year at this stage?
Yeah, definitely. So there's two main reasons for that. First is that some of the sales of the palm oil, the CPO and the PKO happened following the balance sheet date. So they were pushed to H2 2023, and it will be balanced with the annual report. This is one of the main reasons for high level of stock. All of it was sold during July and August. The second main reason is that this is there's an impact of approximately 1.1 million losses of the cashew processing plant. This is the first year that we are not capitalizing the results of it, and this is the first half year of production of it. Because of that, the EBITDA is lower in 1.5 million compared to last year. If we change and adapt it to these two reasons, it should be higher than the previous year.
Yeah, I think that's spot on in terms of the half year, and I think for the full year we'll see the revenue line end up significantly higher than last year with all the stock sold. There's no question on that, and you'll see that in the Q3 numbers, which were great, on the next page, and certainly that will drive a really strong profit year from the palm oil operation. And we also think as the year goes on, the run rate loss from the cashew business will start to reduce, and obviously we're very keen to see that turn into a positive operating profit number in the last month or two of the year. So the Q3 numbers we put out yesterday, and again it's a continuation of a relatively strong production year. Q3's nearly 80% up on CPO production. You'll see in the sales line below what Shay was referring to. We had obviously continued high CPO production, but also the sales of inventory at half year end have taken place through July, August, and September, driving quite a large increase of 192% in sales compared to last year. The price is still very good, above historical averages, but below the incredible prices of last year. I think prices at this level, with the international price at the moment in US dollars, is around $900. It stabilized at this level for quite some time now, so we would be very pleased if this would continue, which really leaves us in a position this year where I think we've got the best combination of strong production and relatively strong prices, which is why we believe the results will be close to, if not at record levels for the palm oil operation. Just Shay, if you can just touch on the Q3 cashew, we saw some uplift, which is good.
Yeah, exactly. So the challenge of the daily production is still on, but there's an improvement of 130% on this production. There's still ground to cover, but we are improving and getting onto that. Also, the other KPIs are still in the range of our expectations. So the main key is increasing the capacity, which we are working on it, and we will discuss probably the challenges via the Q&A section.
No, exactly. There's been a couple of Q&A questions on the daily production rates and the ramp up, which are very good, obvious questions. So we'll cover those in the Q&A. So just to summarize how we see this year performing, it's relatively simple. The palm oil operation is performing really well, and the cashew business is not performing to the level we would have liked it to have been. This is currently reflected in the forecast produced by WH Ireland. We did pull back the cashew volumes considerably for this year and next year, as the ramp up is slower than we expected. But overall, it's going to be a strong year. I think our revenue line will be somewhere in the high 30s million euros, and we're still aiming for an EBITDA of the palm oil business of around about 6. Of course, as Shay mentioned, the cashew business through the ramp up phase is still making a small loss, and that will lead to a small loss for the full year. But overall, it should be a relatively strong year, and it's clearly critical as we move forward. The obvious area of growth is going to be the organic growth from the cashew business, and that's what is going to drive improved and even better performance next year. So the other points probably to make from an ESG point of view, the guys, I think, on the ground did a terrific job to complete the BRC food standard audit on the first attempt at the highest possible grade. So that was done in Q2. What that means is when we do move to steady state production, we are now in a position we can sell essentially anywhere in the world, which we think is really interesting prospect. I think, at the moment, probably people should understand that whilst many food commodity prices are at relatively high levels, cashew prices are actually at the what we would consider cyclical low levels. Mm-hmm. So there's some upside, we think, on the cashew pricing. And we also think as we move into steady state production, we can extract a premium in pricing. That's the goal anyway. And there's certainly a big difference between what we sell for and what you'll see on the supermarket shelves. And one of our goals is to capture some of that additional value. Clearly, all of this is predicated on smooth, steady state production. So we'll get into that in the questions. RSPO certification, we just finished our pre-audit. So we had consultants come in and they do an audit the same way the RSPO certifiers would. And that is pleased to say has been passed. So we are now in a situation where we are just booking the auditor as quickly as we can. Whether we get them in before the year or January is being checked at the moment. But having passed the pre-audit, that would give us, and that's for both the mill and for the estates, puts us in an excellent position to achieve RSPO, as the pre-audit is essentially the same process as the RSPO audit. So finally, some really good news on that behalf, I believe. That probably concludes the formalities of the presentation. We'll get into the questions. We received some questions in advance. Try and give them some logical order, starting with the operations and then into corporate questions. Shay, just the first question of palm oil operation. The question is, you're operating. The question is at about half capacity is the statement. What are you doing to increase the production levels of the palm oil business?
Okay, thanks. So first, the fact is that we are operating at approximately 65% of the full capacity. As probably the investor know, we are based mainly on smallholders, and this is still the case. We are continuing with the program of fertilizers, which is working well, ensuring increasing the production of the overall region. Which some of it we are continuing to collect. Also, we are continuing increasing the plantation in our area by continuing to sell plants from our nursery. Still, our business is based on smallholders, fruits and collections, and the competition is increasing as well. But even though we were able to keep our, let's say, market share of the business of the fruits in our region, and we consider it as a success. Together with pushing more to increase the overall production of the area in order to increase the overall capacity in future years.
Yeah, thanks, Shay. I think in our forecast, we incorporate this. We're not forecasting to get to 60,000 tonnes in the next 2 or 3 years. We think 40 to 45,000 tonnes is probably the optimal steady state of the operation. So that's just the experience over the last 8 or 9 years. I mean, if we're going to drive increases, it's probably more likely to eke out more during the high season, but it's all included in the forecast numbers, which drive the target price of 9.5p that 40 to 45,000 is probably the optimal level we can achieve. Moving on to the second question, Shay, the cashew facility, clearly there's delays. Clearly the ramp up is taking longer than expected, and just if you can comment on that, and then the obvious question that's been asked there as well is when will we be up fully running?
Yeah. Okay. So definitely there's a delay, and there's a delay also in ramping up the production. There's two reasons for this delay. One reason is the contractor delay, which starts back on during COVID, which took him quite a long time to recover and collect all the equipment and send all the equipment to site, at a delay of 1 to 1.5 years after delay for that. This is the first main reason. The second is when now that all essential components are on site and we are ramping up the production, still there's difficulties in some of the machinery, especially in the peeling section, which is it's also related to the first shelling and cooking section. But this is some technical issues that we are learning and improving throughout the time. Obviously, this is a continuous process, so every step which is improved affects the continuation of the process, and the opposite way, if there's a problem in one of it, so it affects the whole process. So this is something, there's a learning curve that we have to do together with improving the production of the factory.
So just taking them one at a time. So because we're obviously talking almost daily on this, the 3 peeling machines are showing significant improvement. To start with the peeling machines.
Yeah. Actually, there's 3 peeling machine. One of the peeling machine already reached almost guaranteed performance or close to that. The other two are improving, and now the team is working on bringing them also in line to the performance guaranteed. There's a bit of problem there in that relates to the shelling section of a bit of the CNSL. This is the oil that in the cashew that is affected a bit the peeling, which also needs to be addressed, and we are checking this improvement as well. I believe that the next few months we will solve this peeling issue and improve the shelling to support the increase in the peeling percentage.
Yeah, so take the shelling. The peeling is moving towards technical specifications. So the shelling show we've ordered, I think, 10 additional supplemental machines, Vietnamese machines, which we have also used previously. When do they arrive, and when do we think that they will be installed? And
that's correct, and it's a good point. It arrived, and it includes also shelling machine and also cooking machinery. It is important because, as I said, every section affects the other. So we will check. We will operate this, let's say, in the next. It arrived to Abidjan, not yet to site. It will arrive to site, I believe, in the next few weeks, and the installation is relatively simple. And then we will be able also first to increase production with this shelling machine, but second also to check if the Vietnamese cooker is doing a better job than what we have now, and potentially improve the material that is arriving to the peeling and affect the whole and improve the whole production of the mill. So this is now already bought and arrived to Abidjan and will be installed in the next few weeks.
Yeah, so to summarize, at the moment, we can see daily production moving up to, say, when things are smooth, 13, 14 tons a day, with the initial goal, which we think is break even, is 20 tons a day. With these shelling machines coming in, we should exceed that, and together with the improvements in the peeling, start to move to profitability. So we are obviously disappointed how long this has taken, and frustrated with our supplier. We feel we've been let down, but we are doing absolutely everything we can now. The equipment is there to take control of any issues we have ourselves, rather than rely on the supplier. And ordering of the shelling machines is a good example of that. So it is not very far away now, we think, to moving past that break-even point with the installation of these shelling machines. And as soon as that takes place, I think this is quite a catalyst for improvement in the sentiment of the stock. Okay, so moving on to some other sort of shorter corporate questions. One was why do we not sort of set out a year in advance the financial calendars for results, dates, productions, AGMs, etc. The question does know that it's unusual for AIM companies to do this, and it is unusual. And one of the main reasons is smaller companies essentially wait behind big companies in terms of getting your audit work done. So it's much more difficult for small companies to pick the dates of audit results, because you're somewhat reliant on the auditors freeing up after delivering the blue chip stock. So that's the reason. I would say, just in general, we are very transparent with our reporting. I mean, there's no palm oil company that's reporting palm oil production monthly. I don't think a lot of them are even producing results quarterly, to be honest. So we're doing palm oil results monthly, and at this stage, while the cashew is ramping up, we're doing it on a quarterly basis. And this sort of answers another one of the questions. Yes, once the cashews reach a steady state production, we see that shareholders like the monthly results, and we'll aim to move cashews into a monthly result and provide even further KPI information on the cashew business. Just moving on to the next set of questions. Questions on the in the past, in terms of the cashew having some elements of related party transaction when it was first started to be acquired a number of years ago. The question, I mean, is basically, I think, about that people don't like related party transactions. I think the answer to our point of view is we completely understand and agree. This wasn't. This was more opportunistic than our strategy at that point. If people have known our stock for some time, will recall the initial goal was to move into additional palm oil companies, and we were trying to acquire a company in the west of Ghana. At that point in time, that transaction fell through. Palm oil prices dropped. We saw a need for the business to diversify and add scale. The cashew business made a lot of sense. We bought it at, I think, 1/10 of the valuation by PKF, and we are seeing this business as a really critical part of the next phase of growth in terms of both the revenue line and profitability, particularly, it seems, next year. There's a question. There was some big trades in the stock in September, and that is correct. So stock price was probably sitting, I think, around about 3.3, and then there was some big trades that went through, which unfortunately has pushed us back to 2.6. Obviously, we are now aware of what that is. It was, so our understanding, it was a fund where the fund manager left his position, and the new fund manager did what typical new fund managers do, and that is remove all the smaller holdings of the previous incumbent. So that stock was sold on. I'm actually, to be honest, given the size of that trade, I think the stock held up relatively well, but I think obviously back at 2.6p is disappointing, but hopefully presents a value opportunity, and we've been at these levels before and moved back to 3.5 to 4. So hopefully, and we're doing presentations this week, people will see this as an opportunity, particularly as we move into cash flow positive on the cashew, and we move back into the palm oil high season in the coming months. RSPO certification, I think we covered that. The pre-audit has been successfully completed, so we are ready for the RSPO auditors and trying to book them in as quickly as possible. Questions about future plans in terms of dividends or buybacks. I think just first of all, the clear plan is we believe we have too much debt. It's clear to us, and the major strategy with our strategy is to pay down debt sensibly. over the next 2 to 3 years, and there's a few different mechanisms we can use to do that. But clearly the goal is to do that majority from positive cash flow from the palm oil business, which is doing rather well, and also from the improving cashew business. So dividend and buybacks are currently on the agenda, but the intention will be to bring that back on the agenda at some point. In terms of our preference between both, it would matter at the time, but I would probably at this point, in the current macro weakness and lack of liquidity in AIM stocks, probably think a buyback would be possibly a more effective mechanism. But as I said, at the moment, the huge focus is on reducing our overall debt level. The next question talks about share price and valuation. WH Ireland rating a valuation of 9.5p. Current stock price is 2.65. Actually, the question is, do you think this valuation is too low? No. I mean, we have we're consulted by WH Ireland, so we think that their target is reasonable. It obviously is based on the palm oil business is really, I think, already acting and behaving and performing at the level to support that valuation. So the area which is not achieving it at the moment is the cashew, but clearly there's significant organic growth in the cashew business to come as we move through towards full capacity of the initial process of initial 10,000 tonnes of raw cashews, and then the potential to move with 3 shifts to 15,000 tonnes, and then to move with another line of machinery to 30,000 tonnes. So that's the growth phase there, which has been staggered out over a 3-year program with WH Ireland. And that will be the key catalyst achieving that in terms of pushing towards our goal. And at that point, I think our stock price is potentially one fourth nearly of that price. So we would hope at that point that can start to decrease. That concludes the pre-questions. I'll just have a look at some of the questions that have come through. If there's anything additional. Yes, there's a question, what is the cashew processing capacity? When we talk about the capacity, we're talking about the raw cashew nuts processed. So we brought back the forecast this year to 2,250 raw cashew nuts processed, and next year to 5,550. Clearly what we would hope to see in particularly, let's say, December, is monthly production moving up to 400 or 500 tonnes, which would mean before we even start 2024, we can hopefully exceed the 5,500 plan for next year. Is there a significant opportunity to reduce cashew inventory levels to generate cash? Yes, I mean, we're holding over 2,000 tonnes of cashew, which obviously the plan is to process those. As Shay was talking earlier, one of the problems we have is with the peeling system and the shelling. It's all interrelated, as Shay says. We're ending up with far too many unpeeled cashews, which sell at maybe a 15-20% discount to peeled cashews. So that is a process where we need to reprocess and turn them into peeled, which is again also part of the issue of slowing down production. But the good news, as we mentioned earlier, is the peeling system is working and improving substantially, with one of the 3 at technical specifications and the other 2 not far off. And the new shelling machines will complement that and decrease the overall amount of unpeeled cashews substantially, which will feed through to sales prices. Why is the cashew business behind? Look, there's always a number of reasons, but there has clearly been a disappointing performance from our supply in terms of initial delays. Some out of control, some in control, and then the equipment that's been in country now for, let's say, 9 months, continued teething problems that we're trying to resolve ourselves. Should we expect FFB harvest levels to continue to be unpredictable over the next few years? Yes, it will always be cyclical, whether it's yearly or monthly variations in agriculture. So it's incredibly difficult to predict in advance. I mean, typically we've seen 1 year out of 6 or 7 be a relatively low year, and that was last year. It was, and then previous to that, I think was roughly 5 years earlier. So there will be variations in the annual and seasonal production, but I think overall our current annual production level of 35 to 40,000 is been pretty consistent. Can you assure us that won't be money spent on the third commodity until cashews is profitable? Yes, that's clearly the case. We won't be using internal cash flow or raising equity for a third commodity until the cashews is delivering. We pull back so I was asking about the pullback in the volumes of cashews. We pulled them back based on the half-year results, and what we could see was the trending monthly production in Q3. So we made sure that we felt that they were within a reasonable reach, which is 2,250 tonnes of raw cashews this year and 5,500 next year. And as I stated earlier, the 5,500, we would hope we can exceed that, and hoping that we see in December, particularly 400 or 500 tonnes a day, which would mean we're already tracking to that level before we start the year. Struggling to reconcile your good trading statements with the low share price. First part of the question, yes, I mean, the palm oil business, I think, has been very good, but the cashew business has been disappointing. So that's probably the overriding factor. And as I mentioned earlier, we had a one-off seller in September, which moved us back from 3.3 to 2.6. And overall macro conditions for small caps are also probably fair to say extremely challenging as a fellow small cap investor. Are there political risks in Ivory Coast? Relatively low. It's been, I think we would fairly say, show that it's the strongest economy in West Africa, and politically stable. Yeah, I mean, we're watching a lot of the mining companies that are based in Chad, Burkina, Mali, very keen to move to Côte d'Ivoire because it's seen as a much better jurisdiction from the mining sector, as well as obviously being clearly the strongest agriculture sector in West Africa. Is it realistic to expect compensation from the supplier to effective cashew machinery? Good question. We obviously are disappointed, and the equipment was supposed to be delivered to a schedule and work at a certain specification. It's cost us and our shareholders money, so it's something that's being contemplated. But I think, from our perspective, the most important thing is to do what we can now internally, given the equipment is on site, to bring it to its full capacity, and that's where we will drive money rather than possibly lawsuits, which can take years and perhaps lead to little recovery. But of course, these things are all being assessed and commercially sensitive. So good question. The extra capex on the new shelling machines that we got from Vietnam, they're pretty modest.
Yeah, it's pretty modest. Basically, the equipment that we already on site is already paid off. It's the additional investment are modest investment. They are not at the scale of the whole plant. It's relatively modest.
Are you planning any further diversification? I think, I guess, to touch on the previous question, obviously there's a huge focus on bringing the cashews to full capacity, because the potential cash flow from the cashews is what we believe to be significant. So that's at this stage we're not pressing the button on our additional projects. We have potentially 2 projects that can benefit and operate from our palm oil site, where we have excess power from our palm oil mill, which potentially gives us an opportunity to be a low-cost operator of 2 different projects. We like both of those, and we've had feasibility on those. And plus, clean energy, we have done feasibility, but it's a significant capex, and at this stage they're on hold. I think one thing, our business model is really attractive to our development banks, and if we are going to go down the stage of pushing to projects 3 and 4, you unlikely see us raising significant money or any money in the London market at these valuations, but we are viewed by development banks as a real success story in terms of what we've built as a platform in terms of the palm oil business and the cashew, and the style of operation being heavily in collaboration with small farmers, ticks and developed in the local community with significant employment, ticks significant social boxes. So yes, there's significant interest in those types of groups to get involved in projects like that. So that's perhaps a different way we could do project level style funding. But for the moment, I think for the next 3 or 4 months, every attention is going to be on the cashew business. I think that answers the majority of the questions.
Fantastic, Lincoln. Shay, thank you very much indeed for covering those off. And of course, if there are any further questions that do come through, the team will be able to review those, and we'll publish responses where appropriate to do so. Lincoln, perhaps just before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which is particularly important to you and the team, could I just ask you for a few closing comments, please?
First of all, thank you for everyone's time. I know it's valuable. And I think if there are other questions, shareholders would know that if they write to us, they'll be answered within a day. And often I'll pick up the phone and we'll have a chat about the business. So please feel free to come to us direct with any questions. Clearly, we've got an interesting and exciting next 3 to 6 months. The palm oil business is continuing to do very well this year. So we're looking forward to getting to the end of the year and potentially getting very close to record results from that business. And clearly the exciting level of organic growth next year is related to the cashew. It's been delayed, we're frustrated, and but we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, the most important thing initially was to get all the equipment on site, and now we are working through small issues rather than holistic issues. And I think with the new shelling machines coming on board and the improvement in the peeling system that we're seeing over the last probably even 3 weeks, we're seeing this business move towards a positive contributor, and this will no doubt be the driver of share price appreciation from here, is having both business together delivering profitable outcomes. And that's the plan in our forecast and in WH Island's forecast for next year. So we look forward to the next 3 months, and we look forward to the next shareholder update call. And I think perhaps you have a look at the share price at the moment, that you'll see that it has been probably harmed unnecessarily by one seller. So I think there is an opportunity in the market at the moment, particularly as we head into the high season and cashew moving to positive production. So thank you very much for everyone's time. Thanks, Shay.
Thank you very much.
And doing this together, and we look forward to a positive few months. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you both for updating investors today. Can I please ask investors not to close the session? You should be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order the team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of DEKEL Agri-Vision PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good afternoon to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.